Welcome to Harmonyspace, the channel where we break down workplace culture without the corporate fuss. Whether you are just stumbling across this channel or you've been riding with us from day one, I'm Efua, and this is your space to explore how identities change our work lives. Let's be real, the workplace is changing faster than your TikTok feed. And if you are tired of companies talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion while doing absolutely nothing, that's why each week we dive into topics that actually matter, how different cultural and religious backgrounds create both challenges and opportunities, what real inclusion looks like beyond the corporate buzzwords, practical ways to navigate your identity at work without compromising who you are. We bring you real stories from real people, expert insights without the jargon, and actionable advice you can actually use, whether you are just starting your career or running the show. This channel isn't about performative allyship or corporate virtue signaling. It's about creating workplaces where everyone can thrive. Because let's face it, we spend way too much time at work to not feel like we belong there. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community in the comments. Got topics you want covered? Questions you need answered? Drop them below. The channel exists for you. Harmonyspace, because diversity isn't just a checkbox, it's the future of work. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Harmonyspace, where we explore the diverse dimensions of our modern workplace. I'm Efua, and today we are diving into a topic that affects every single one of us: generational communication gaps in the workplace. Whether you've rolled your eyes at a boomer who insists on printing emails, or you've been that manager who's confused by Gen Z slang in Slack channels, these communication gaps are real. They are impacting productivity, and they are shaping workplace culture in ways we need to understand. In the UK alone, we now have up to 5 generations working side by side for the first time in history, from traditionalists born before 1946 to Gen Z born after 1997. That's nearly 80 years of different cultural touchpoints, technological familiarity, and communication preferences all trying to collaborate in the same Teams meeting. So today, we are unpacking these differences, exploring their impact, and most importantly, finding practical ways to bridge these gaps for more inclusive, productive workplaces. Let's start by mapping out the current UK workplace landscape. The latest data from the Office for National Statistics shows that approximately 35% of the UK workforce consists of millennials, making them the largest generational group. Gen Z now makes up nearly 20% and growing rapidly, while Gen Z accounts for about 33%, baby boomers around 10%, and a small percentage of traditionalists still working past retirement age. This unique mix presents both challenges and opportunities, especially in how we communicate across generational lines. The pandemic accelerated remote and hybrid work adoption across the UK, with over 85% of businesses implementing some form of flexible working. According to research by Workplace Intelligence UK, 67% of British employees report experiencing miscommunication due to generational differences at least once weekly. The Financial Times reported that UK companies with strong cross-generational communication practices saw 23% higher employee retention rates in 2024. UK workplaces are experiencing particular tension around formality, with older generations often preferring more structured communication channels, while younger workers embrace casual, immediate messaging. One particularly British dimension to this issue is our historical relationship with hierarchy and formality. Some research suggests that compared to our European neighbors, UK workplaces still maintain more rigid hierarchical structures that can exacerbate generational divides. The proper way to address senior management or clients can vary dramatically depending on when you entered the workforce. Let's break down the key communication characteristics of each generation currently in the UK workplace. The baby boomers, actually prefer face-to-face communication or phone calls, value formal, grammatically correct written communication, appreciate detailed context and background information, often uncomfortable with abbreviations and workplace slang, typically prefer scheduled meetings over impromptu chats. And the Gen Zs prefer adaptable communicators who bridge older and younger styles, generally prefer email as primary communication method, and value efficiency and directness in communication. They appreciate autonomy and dislike mismanagement communication. They often serve as translators between older and younger colleagues. And the millennials, they are comfortable with multiple communication channels simultaneously. They prefer collaborative communication tools and shared workplaces. They value transparency and frequent feedback. Again, they are very comfortable blending personal and professional communication styles, and they prefer strong preference for digital communication over paper. And our Gen Zs, the native digital communicators who prefer visual and concise messages. They are highly comfortable with video communication and voice notes. They expect immediate responses and continuous connectivity, more likely to use emojis, GIFs, and informal language professionally, and often uncomfortable with traditional business phone calls. What's fascinating is how these preferences were shaped. Baby boomers grew up with limited technology and formal workplace structures. Gen Z witnessed the digital revolution midway through their careers, and the millennials came of age during the internet boom. And Gen Z has never known a world without smartphones. Isn't that interesting? In the UK specifically, research from Lancaster University Business School found that British Gen Z workers are more likely than their global counterparts to code switch between formal and informal communication styles depending on context, perhaps reflecting the continued British value of appropriate communication. So let's explore some specific communication flashpoints that are creating tension in UK workplaces. Boomers and Gen Z often prefer scheduled, agenda driven meetings. Millennials tend to want collaborative, discussion based sessions. And Gen Z typically questions the need for meetings at all when issues could be resolved digitally. According to a 2024 UK workplace survey by Deloitte, 78% of Gen Z respondents reported feeling that meetings were inefficient uses of time, compared to just 34% of boomers. Research from King's College London Business School found that 63% of UK managers over 50 perceived brief digital messages from younger staff as rude or abrupt, whereas 71% of Gen Z workers viewed shorter messages as being respectful of others' time. So younger generations expect regular, immediate feedback. Older generations often adhere to formal review processes. A YouGov poll found that 82% of UK millennials want feedback at least monthly, while only 47% of baby boomers felt this was necessary. And looking at work-life boundaries, communication about availability varies dramatically by generation. 24/7 connectivity expectations versus strict working hours. Recent UK legislation on right to disconnect has highlighted these tensions. One particularly interesting UK findings comes from the Chartered Management Institute, which reported that cross-generational mentoring programs where communication styles are explicitly discussed increase team productivity by 34% and reduce reported conflicts by over 50%. Now let's broaden our view and examine how UK generational communication compares globally. In the US, generally more direct communication across generations, earlier adoption of casual workplace language, greater emphasis on personal branding in professional communication, higher acceptance of emoji and informal language in professional settings. In Japan, much stronger hierarchical communication norms, greater generational divide in digital tool adoption, more formal workplace language maintained across all generations, higher emphasis on indirect communication and saving face. In the Nordic countries, flatter organizational structures minimizing generational authority gaps, higher digital literacy among older workers and reducing tech divides, greater work-life balance expectations across generations, more standardized communication practices reducing miscommunication. So global companies with UK operations often report having to adapt their communication policies specifically for British workplaces. Microsoft UK found that their British teams required more structured guidance around communication channel selections than their Nordic counterparts, but less formal tone guidelines rather than their Japanese divisions. What's particularly interesting is how migration and global talent flows are affecting these patterns. London workplaces with higher percentages of international staff report lower instances of generational communication issues, suggesting diversity may actually help bridge these gaps. So, what can UK organizations do to bridge these generational communication gaps? So, there are some guides that we can look at, such as creating clear but flexible guidelines for different communication channels, establishing when to use which medium, when is Slack appropriate versus email versus call, defining response time expectations for different types of communication, pairing younger workers with senior staff to exchange communication insights. John Lewis Partnership reported 40% improved cross-generational engagement after implementing such a program. So looking at communication skills training, offering generation-specific training on adapting communication styles, teaching digital communication etiquette across generations, providing context for why different generations may have different preferences. Clearly, defining which communication tools are for which purposes, setting expectations around working hours and response times, creating shared understanding of urgency indicators. One approach I find particularly promising comes from Nationwide Building Society here in the UK. They've implemented what they call communication preference profiles, where team members can specify their preferred contact methods, best times to reach them, and how they prefer to receive feedback. These profiles are shared within teams and have reduced miscommunication incidents by 47% since implementation. Looking ahead, several trends will shape generational communication in UK workplaces. So looking at AI communication tools, AI writing assistants are already helping bridge communication style gaps. Predictive text and tone suggestions are helping different generations adapt messages. Translation tools that can convert between formal and casual communication styles, and virtual reality workplaces. As VR workplaces grow, they may create new communication challenges. Avatar-based interaction could either minimize or amplify generational differences. UK companies like BP and BT are already experimenting with virtual meeting spaces. And looking at voice-first communication, the rise of voice notes and audio messages is changing written communication norms. Different generations have varying comfort levels with voice versus text. Voice to text transcription is helping bridge these preferences. Born after 2012, the first Gen Alpha workers will enter UK workplaces by 2030. Early indications suggest even greater comfort with visual and AI mediated communication. Current young managers need to prepare for another communication evolution. What's particularly fascinating is how the pandemic has accelerated many of these trends. Research from the University of Manchester suggests that the forced adoption of digital communication tools during lockdowns may have actually helped narrow some generational gaps, as everyone, regardless of age, had to adopt simultaneously to new ways of working. So there are some actionable takeaways. Let's close with some practical takeaways for our listeners. Practice communication flexibility. Adopt your style when working across generations. Ask explicitly about communication preferences rather than making assumptions. Recognize the value in different communication approaches. Focus on clarity first, style second. Be curious about the why behind different generational preferences. And for managers and leaders, create explicit communication guidelines for teams with multiple generations. Model adaptability by using different communication styles appropriately. Build communication style diversity into team formation. Measure and reward effective cross-generational communication. Include communication preference discussions in onboarding. And for the wider organizations, audit current communication practices for generational biases. Implement training specifically focused on cross-generational communication. Consider communication styles when designing physical and digital workspaces. Create opportunities for social connection across generational lines. Recognize and reward communication bridge builders. So today I'd like to end with a quote from Professor Linda Grayton at London Business School, one of the leading researchers on future work trends. She says, the most successful organizations won't be those that force all generations to communicate in the same way, but those that create the conditions where different communication styles can coexist productively. And that brings us to the end of today's episode, exploring generational communication gaps in the workplace. I hope you've gained some insights into why these differences exist, how they are playing out specifically in UK workplaces, and most importantly, practical ways to bridge these divides. I'd love to hear your experiences. Have you encountered generational communication challenges at work? What strategies have helped your team overcome them? Share your thoughts in the comments below or join the conversation on our social channels. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and share with colleagues who might benefit. Until then, this is Efua, reminding you that in our diverse workplaces, understanding each other is the first step to truly including everyone. Bye-bye.